Hi, I'm Stephen Adams and welcome to Optimum TV and welcome to our Dealmakers 2026 series where we look at what's happened in the year past and more importantly cast our eyes to the year ahead. Today I'm joined by Otello Stampacchia. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Otello.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
So Otello is the founder and managing director of Omega Funds, which he founded in 2003, if I've got my history correct. So has plenty of experience in biotech's ups and downs. So let's jump straight in. Let's talk about private markets, Otello. How confident are you in the outlook for fundraising in the private life science investment market for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I'm moderately cautiously rather optimistic. I think, however, in a context of a meaningful concentration of number of funds out there, just because it's been a little bit trickier to raise capital for those funds, but I think it's perhaps a truism that good companies can raise money in every environment. It's just the bar for quality is a little bit higher than it used to be.
Okay, now let's talk about M&A. M&A in 2025 has been something of a mixed bag. Like your thoughts on that. And how do you think it will perform in 2026?
Yeah, I think the year started slower, perhaps. However, in the last couple of months, and really since August, there's been quite a lot of activity, both in terms of number of deals, which is probably the best way to look at the industry, just because most of the deals in our industry are on the smaller side in terms of transaction deal size. It's really picked up since, with a number of acquisitions in the 5 billion plus range. Metsera was very public with the Pfizer-Novo battle. And many of these deals have multiple bidders. So there's really a bit of a FOMO happening right now, so fear of missing out within the pharma community. And I really think this will very much tide over into 2026. So I'm quite optimistic on the M&A outlook for next year. However, again, what pharma companies want is products. So there's a certain bar for quality there in terms of what they want to buy.
Well, it's great to hear that there's a little bit of FOMO out there. We need some of that. Now let's turn our attention to public markets, a tricky area. There haven't been many IPOs in life sciences recently. Do you think that will change in 2026? Do you think the window will open?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that it will change. I am hopeful, but not optimistic, that we'll maintain a certain discrimination for both the number and quality of companies that go public, because I think we paid over a number of years the excesses of 2019, 2020, and 21. But yes, I'm pretty positive, actually, that there's going to be more IPOs in 26. A lot of generalists are coming back into the space. Specialists are recycling the capital that has come from these M&A events that we talked about. So yes, that's my kind of view at the moment.
Okay. Now, lots of investors have been, for very good reasons, prioritizing the companies in their portfolios. They've been guarding them, you might say, and allocating capital to them. And that's had the effect of not investing so much in new companies. Do you and that's been going on for a while now. Do you think that will continue into 2026, or do you think there will be a higher proportion of capital allocated to new companies?
So we're talking public and private investors, I assume, right? So on the public side, again, a lot of these, specialist funds were nursing quite meaningful losses starting. The peak for the XBI was February 21. So the years after have been pretty skinny years for those funds, and therefore they've been concentrating their portfolios. They were suffering redemptions. I see the dynamic now reversing, right? We mentioned earlier, some of these funds are distributing capital or receiving capital from the distributions from these M&A exits. So that dynamic will go into reverse. They will be more open to new investments. On the private side, again, the rate limiting factors for venture funds, for example, to deploy is if they raised a new fund. And we have seen a number of these funds deploying much more carefully, slowly, perhaps, because they felt, not wrongly, the prospects of raising capital were not great. I still think that dynamic will come to play a bit for the next year or two, because distributions on the private side have been few and far between among many of our peers. And LPs are the limited partners, the investors in these funds, right? LPs are themselves capital constrained because they haven't received distributions from other parts of their, investment portfolio, buyout funds, and so on. So the dynamic is very much driven from what has happened on the exit side. And I think it will take a long time for that, a long time being several years perhaps, for that dynamic to reverse on the venture side. I think on the public side, it will reverse much sooner.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Now, licensing and partnering has been a steady stream of licensing and partnering activity and deals in 2025. What is your forecast for 2026, and what diseases and areas and technologies do you think will attract the most interest?
Yeah, I think the partnering, licensing, which we need to differentiate a bit from M&A, it will continue on a positive streak. I don't think there's going to be massive changes in the partnering activity. Pharma does need to plug these holes on the product, commercial portfolio, so they tend to buy later stage assets and partner early stage assets. The areas that have seen a lot of interest are obviously cardiometabolic, with the realization that some of these disease areas are absolutely massive. You might remember the years when nobody wanted to invest in obesity drug trials, and now it's $150 to $200 billion potential category. So that continues to attract a lot of interest just because of the sheer size of the market, and there's a number of facets of the market, not just obesity, diabetes, that there are very important repercussions across a number of disease areas with those agents. Other indications that are very interesting to pharma are any indications with meaningful unmet needs where they're pretty sizable markets, so quite a lot in the immunology field. And immunology obviously covers a lot of diseases, but many of these diseases still have very high unmet needs. So those are the large ones, together with neurology. Neurology is a little bit more difficult to treat at the clinical side, just because the indications are trickier to pinpoint clinical endpoints on. But we continue to see a lot of interest in that. There's also new diseases that people are coming up with. I'm quite fond of the story of what happened to Insmed, which originally was a drug that was out-licensed from AstraZeneca because the commercial team at AstraZeneca felt that it was a small market potentially, and everybody now thinks it's a $5 to $6 billion potential market. So we continue to be surprised by the ingenuity and really just the new things that we're discovering every day in this industry, which is an amazing part of being in it.
Okay, fantastic. Finally, some quick fire questions for you, Otello. Just single word or single sentence answers. Your thoughts on the hottest modality of 2026?
Yeah, I think we moved on from modalities. Most pharma, sorry, that's not a single answer, but I think most pharma is now comfortable with a lot of modalities, but biologics, small molecules, cell therapy. So I think we've become agnostic in that.
Okay, fine, agnostic. Hottest disease area?
Sorry.
Come and go.
Yeah, cardiometabolic for sure,
okay.
And that includes obesity. Yeah.
Okay. Early stage companies and assets, will they be back in fashion or not?
Not for a bit.
Okay, that sounds like a no.
Again, there are exceptions. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Will we still be talking about US drug prices?
Yes, I think pricing is very much front of mind for a lot of investors. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And finally, will the life science investment sector as a whole be in a better or a worse state in 12 months' time?
Probably much better.
Okay, that's a great note to end on. Fantastic. Otello Stampacchia of Omega Funds, thanks very much indeed.
Stephen, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.